Welcome to today's episode of Somali Nexus, where we dig deep into the past and uncover the hidden stories that have shaped our world. And today, we're diving into a fascinating, often overlooked chapter of history, one that takes us back thousands of years to the Horn of Africa. This is the story of the ancient Somali civilization, a rich and untold history. For centuries, the Somali peninsula has been a crossroads of cultures, a place of immense historical significance. But beyond the headlines of modern conflict and political challenges, there's a remarkable story of innovation, trade, and cultural brilliance. Today, we explore the layers of this untold history, stretching back to the prehistoric days of ancient herders, through to the rise of sophisticated city-states and powerful sultanates that connected Africa, Asia, and Europe. We begin our journey with the stunning art of Laas Geel, where 5,000-year-old rock paintings offer us a glimpse into the Neolithic world. Here, we see early evidence of a society built around cattle domestication, depictions of long-horned cattle, not as prey, but as sacred symbols of wealth, status, and spiritual importance. From there, we travel to the mythic land of Punt, where Egyptian pharaohs once sought the precious goods of incense and myrrh, bringing the riches of the Somali coast to the attention of the ancient world. As we continue, we uncover the classical city-states that once thrived along the coast, where Somali merchants dominated global trade networks, acting as intermediaries between the Roman Empire and the riches of the East. And later, we explore the mighty Adal and Ajuran Sultanates, two empires that define the medieval Horn of Africa with their military prowess, technological advancements, and global connections. This story is about resilience, innovation, and the reclamation of history, a history that is still being uncovered today. So, stay tuned as we take you through the ancient Somali civilization, a history not just of the past, but one that continues to shape the present and future. And if you enjoy this journey through history, make sure to subscribe to Somali Nexus, share this episode with others, and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us bring more untold stories to life. Let's begin. When you think of ancient civilizations, what immediately springs to mind? The Egyptians, Romans, perhaps the Aztecs.
Sure, those are the big names.
But what if one of the most vibrant, influential, and globally connected ancient civilizations has been largely overlooked? Its incredible story buried under centuries of neglect and conflict.
Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. The rich and complex history of ancient Somalia.
Right.
We're aiming to uncover a civilization that really shaped trade, politics, and culture across the Indian Ocean for millennia. It left behind an incredible legacy that is only now truly coming to light.
So, our mission today is to take you on a journey through Somalia's past. We'll go from its prehistoric roots right up to powerful medieval sultanates.
It connects the dots, yeah. Show how this region was a really dynamic hub in the ancient world.
Exactly. We're drawing from some fascinating sources like ancient Somalia, a civilization's enduring legacy, and the unwritten horn-deep history of ancient Somalia. We want to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge, some surprising facts too, just to help you get informed about a history that truly deserves, well, a place in the global narrative.
Get ready, because we're talking rock art. Older than many pyramids. A legendary land that captivated Egyptian pharaohs.
Wow.
Powerful merchant republics that, outsmarted empires. And the untold stories of how this history is actually being reclaimed today.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Our journey starts way back, not with written records, but with these stunning visual clues from the Neolithic period. That's roughly 9,000 to 3,000 BCE.
Right. And we're talking rock art. Art that tells a story of a pretty sophisticated pastoral culture.
The time depth here is just incredible, isn't it?
It really is. The Laas Geel paintings near Hargeisa, they date back over 5,000 years, among the oldest in Africa.
5,000 years?
Yeah. And they show these vivid pictures of humpless, long-horned cattle, often adorned with ceremonial robes or these distinctive rectangular things. plastrons, they call them.
So not just cows in a field?
Not at all. It suggests a profound cultural and religious importance. Like a cattle cult, maybe, where these animals were revered. Sacred figures, not just prey or livestock, central to their whole world.
And it wasn't just animals. Right. You mentioned human figures, too.
Exactly. At Laas Geel and another site, Dambalin, you see human figures. They look like they're in worship poses, often wearing white tunics, halo-like crowns.
So, what does all this tell us about their society, how they lived?
Well, if we connect it to the bigger picture, these paintings really illustrate the Neolithic revolution happening right there in the Horn of Africa. They show how domesticated cattle became the foundation for wealth, for social status, even for religious belief. This art isn't just, pretty pictures. It's a detailed socioeconomic record. It indicates a complex ceremonial religious structure, all intertwined with their pastoral life.
Now here's where it gets really interesting for me. You mentioned something found beneath these paintings at Laas Geel.
Yes. Archaeologists found fragments. Fragments of an ancient, totally undeciphered writing system.
Wow. So, writing way back then.
It raises a huge question, doesn't it? It suggests this long-lost history of indigenous literacy on the Somali peninsula.
Which totally challenges the usual idea that the region was just oral until Arabic script came along later.
Precisely. It points to a kind of lost intellectual tradition that we're only just starting to get glimpses of.
Still, despite these amazing finds, a lot of Somalia's history was preserved orally, wasn't it? Through stories, poetry.
Absolutely. And that tradition is still incredibly crucial to Somali cultural identity today. It reminds us there are many ways history can be kept alive, not just through writing.
And given the challenges today, preserving sites like Laas Geel is critical.
It is. There are efforts now, like from the Factum Foundation, to digitally document them in high-resolution 3D. It's vital work to preserve this ancient legacy, especially since the physical art is threatened by, lack of resources.
Yeah. Okay, let's move forward in time a bit to the second millennium BCE. This is when ancient Somalia enters the written records, mainly through this legendary land of Punt.
Yes. Punt, or Puenet, as the Egyptians called it, sometimes even Tanecharu, the god's land.
The god's land. Wow, why such a grand name?
Well, Punt was famous as a land of immense wealth, particularly frankincense and myrrh.
The aromatics.
Exactly. The Egyptians saw them as sacred offerings, absolutely crucial for temple rituals, even for mummification. So that connection underlines the deep spiritual significance of the trade.
And there's that famous expedition by Pharaoh Hatshepsut around 1460 BCE. It's documented in detail.
Meticulously documented. Yeah. In the reliefs at Deir el-Bahri, they show these lavish gifts coming from Punt's rulers, a King Parahu and Queen Ati.
What kind of gifts are we talking about?
Incredible stuff. Live myrrh, trees, ebony, gold, ivory, baboons, even giraffes.
Live trees and giraffes. What stands out to you about that expedition?
Just the sheer scale and the strategic importance of this trade. And modern archaeology backs it up. We find Egyptian pottery other artifacts along Somalia's coast. It strongly corroborates the connection.
But Punt's actual location, that was a huge mystery for a long time in Egyptology, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. One of the great unsolved puzzles theories put it all over the place. Eritrea, Sudan, even southern Arabia.
But the thinking has shifted now, hasn't it? The evidence.
It really has. I mean, the debate isn't completely over, but the majority scholarly view now points strongly towards Somalia as the heartland of Punt.
What kind of evidence shifted things?
Well, archaeological finds like those Egyptian artifacts found right on Somali coastal sites. And get this, isotopic analysis of mummified baboons found in Egyptian tombs. Their isotopes match the region of modern Somalia.
Baboon isotopes, that's specific.
It is. Plus, Discoveries at Wadi Gawasis on the Egyptian Red Sea coast provided what some call indisputable evidence that these big expeditions were seaborne voyages, proper sea journeys, not just river trips. That debunks some older theories.
So maybe Punt wasn't one single fixed point, but more like a dynamic zone, a network.
Precisely. That's a good way to put it. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, think about what this quest for Punt's treasures did to Egypt.
How so?
This immense demand, it drove Egyptian state innovation. They had to make massive investments in shipbuilding and logistics. It effectively pushed Egypt to become a major maritime power, partly to bypass rivals like the Kingdom of Kush.
Interesting.
So, the story of Punt isn't just about a place. It's about how demand for stuff can fundamentally shape an empire's grand strategy.
Okay, so as the pharaonic era fades, Somalia doesn't just disappear, it keeps thriving into the Greco-Roman period.
Absolutely. From the 1st century BCE to maybe the 5th century CE, Somali coastal cities became really integral parts of the whole Indian Ocean trade network.
And we know this from texts like the Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, that Greek sailor's guide.
Exactly. It describes these far-side ports and their inhabitants, the Barbaroi, as savvy merchants.
What's really fascinating, though, is that these weren't colonies. Were they like Roman or Greek outposts?
No, not at all. That's key. They were indigenous polities, autonomous places run by their own local chiefs. This kind of decentralized structure was actually a very sophisticated adaptation. It maximized their flexibility in global trade.
Smart. So, these ports of Pone, which is maybe a Ras Hafen today, Mogadishu, Zayla, they were buzzing hubs.
Definitely buzzing. Exporting frankincense, myrrh, ivory, even slaves, and importing goods from all over. Roman pottery, Mediterranean wine jars, amphorae, Indian beads.
So, what does that mix tell us?
It just shows how incredibly cosmopolitan these cities were. Real evidence of Somali engagement in a deeply interconnected world economy. You had African, Asian, Mediterranean cultures all intertwining through commerce.
And wasn't there even more found at Upon Ras Hafen? Things from Persia.
Yes. Excavations there unearth not just Roman and Indian stuff, but also distinctive glazed pottery from the Parthian and Sasanian empires in Persia.
And there's more, right? Something even older.
Yeah. This is where it gets really interesting again. They found Mycenaean Greek pottery that dates back to the 16th to 11th centuries BCE.
Whoa, hold on. Mycenaean Greece? That's Bronze Age.
Exactly. And an 8th century BCE Sabian inscription too, from ancient Yemen.
So, what does that imply?
Well, it raises a really important question about the limits of just relying on written texts like the Periplus. That text gives us a snapshot, sure, but these finds at Hafun, they reveal a history of contact stretching back a full millennium, before the Periplus was even written.
1,000 years earlier.
Yeah. It proves these deeper, multi-millennial global trade connections. It shows Somalia was a key player long, long before the Greeks and Romans wrote about them.
The Somali merchants themselves, they were pretty sharp. They read something about the cinnamon trade.
Oh yeah, masters of commercial acumen. They controlled the lucrative cinnamon trade. They were strategically sourcing it from way over in Ceylon, Sri Lanka, and the Far East. But they managed to convince their Roman and Greek customers that it was a native product of Somalia just to inflate the prices.
Aha, brilliant. Talk about controlling the narrative.
It's a perfect example of their strategic thinking. And they didn't stop there. They apparently formed a kind of collusive agreement with Arab merchants.
To do what?
To bar Indian ships from trading directly in Arabian ports, which effectively diverted a lot of that direct Indian trade towards the Somali ports instead.
Clever. Yeah, because the Somali ports were outside Roman control.
Exactly. They remained free from Roman interference. It cemented their strategic importance. They even developed their own distinctive ship, the Baden.
The Baden. What was special about it?
A fast, apparently very durable double-masted ship, perfectly adapted to handle the monsoon winds of the Indian Ocean. Innovation driven by trade.
So, moving into the medieval period, now this is when Somalia's coastline really seems to explode with these powerful city-states, Mogadishu especially.
Mogadishu, definitely. Between the 10th and 15th centuries, it became incredibly influential, hugely important.
We have accounts from travelers, right? Like Ibn Battuta.
Yes, the renowned 14th century traveler. He visited Mogadishu and described it as a town of enormous size. He said it was one of the most prosperous and well-governed cities he'd seen anywhere.
And it was exporting goods far and wide.
High-quality textiles, for example. As far as Egypt, it just illustrates its immense wealth and its strategic position on those Indian Ocean routes.
And Islam played a big role in this era.
A huge role. Islam had spread across the region by the 7th century, and it really amplified the economy and the cultural richness. You see it in the architecture, like the Fakir ad-Din Mosque in Mogadishu, 13th century, one of the oldest in East Africa.
So, connecting this to the bigger picture, these cities weren't just docks and markets, not at all.
Mogadishu, Zaila, Barawa, they were centers of culture of Islamic scholarship too. Islam brought the Arabic script, new architectural styles, technologies like improved irrigation systems.
Education too.
Yes. The establishment of madrasas, they taught religion, of course, but also mathematics, astronomy, medicine. Somali Islam became this unique blend, of Arab influences and indigenous traditions.
Now there were two major sultanates in this era that really stand out, Adal and Ajuran. They seemed quite different.
They were showcasing different ways of building a state. The Ajuran Sultanate, mostly in southern Somalia, from the 13th to 17th centuries. It's uniquely described as Africa's only hydraulic empire.
A hydraulic empire? What does that mean?
It means they built these incredibly elaborate systems, dams, dikes, large limestone wells to harness river floodwaters, particularly from the Shabelle River. They basically transformed arid lands into highly productive agricultural zones, engineering on a grand scale. And they weren't just farmers. They successfully fought off the Portuguese several times. They had significant naval power.
Wow. And the other one, the Adal Sultanate.
Adal was different. Around 1415 to 1577. A very dynamic, multi-ethnic Muslim empire based more inland on the Harar Plateaus.
And their history involved conflict with Ethiopia.
Yes, its history is deeply intertwined with a long, long struggle against the Christian Solomonic dynasty of Abyssinia, or Ethiopia. This peaked in the devastating conquest of Abyssinia, led by Imam Ahmed ibn Ibrahim al-Ghazi.
Also known as Ahmed Gure.
That's him, the left-handed. And this conflict became huge. It actually drew in global superpowers of the time. The Ottomans supported Adal and the Portuguese supported Ethiopia, supplying firearms sides.
A proxy war, essentially. So what's the big takeaway from these sultanates?
It really demonstrates that these Somali states were not passive bystanders. They weren't just sitting there receiving foreign goods or being on the edge of things.
Right.
They were active, powerful players in a pre-modern, globalized system. They had complex diplomatic ties, commercial relations with places as far away as Ming China.
Ming China, really?
Yeah, exporting giraffes and zebras to the Ming court, importing vast amounts of Chinese ceramics in return. And they traded with the Republic of Venice too. Their material culture, their military victories. The Somalis were significant actors on the world stage for centuries.
It's an incredible history. Yet, as we said at the start, ancient Somali civilization has often been marginalized, overlooked.
It really has. But there is a growing effort now to correct that. And part of that involves challenging some long-held myths and assumptions.
Like the debate over Punt.
Exactly. What this implies is we need to fundamentally reconsider Somalia's role. For years, scholars placed Punt elsewhere, minimizing Somalia's importance. But the new archaeological evidence strongly supporting Somalia forces us to see it not as just a middleman, but as a vital center of trade and culture itself.
And there was another myth you mentioned, the Shirazi myth.
Yes. This was a narrative quite common for a while that claimed foreign settlers, Persians, supposedly from Shiraz, founded the great Somali city-states like Mogadishu.
But that's been debunked.
Pretty thoroughly, yes. Modern archaeological research looking at the actual foundations and early layers of these cities shows clearly that Somali people themselves built and governed them. Foreign influences came through trade, through interaction, not through colonization or replacement.
That's a really important shift, isn't it, for Somali identity?
Huge. It helps restore agency and pride to Somali history. It highlights the resilience, the ingenuity of the people themselves.
When you think about these overlooked stories, what stands out most to you?
For me, it's increasingly the role of Somali women in ancient society. So much of the recorded history and even the oral traditions passed down through certain lines became male-centric.
Right.
But new research digging deeper into other oral traditions, looking at folklore, suggests women held really significant roles in early governance and religious rituals. There are legendary figures like Queen Arawilo, who reflects possible matriarchal elements way back in ancient Somali society. It gives us new insights into gender dynamics.
And Somali scholars today, they're making incredible discoveries, often working with international partners.
They are making real headway, but they're working against this really grim backdrop.
The conflict.
Decades of conflict and, frankly, systematic looting have led to a catastrophic loss of the archaeological record. It's the single greatest barrier to understanding ancient Somalia. It's created what some call an archaeology of absence. The story is shaped as much by what's missing, what's been destroyed, as by what we can find.
It's heartbreaking. And yet there's resilience there too, isn't there? You mentioned Dr. Sadamiri.
Yes, incredible resilience. Dr. Sadamira, a Swedish Somali archaeologist, is a fantastic example. She's leading efforts to preserve and protect what remains of Somalia's cultural heritage, often in very challenging circumstances, particularly in Somaliland.
Her work sounds like more than just digging.
Oh, absolutely. Her work really transforms archaeology into a form of cultural, even political resistance. She's discovered nearly 100 previously unknown rock art sites. She was instrumental in setting up Somaliland's Department of Tourism and Archaeology. She founded an organization called Horn Heritage.
That's amazing.
And her philosophy is powerful. She argues that cultural heritage is a basic human need, that it's essential for healing, for post-conflict reconstruction. She's literally fighting against chaos, for the very idea of a Somali nation that has a shared, tangible past it can connect with.
Which brings us to how history is used, how it shapes the present. In the 20th century, this deep history was actively mobilized, wasn't it, for pan-Somali nationalism?
Very much so. Somalinimo, the idea of uniting all Somali-speaking people into one nation-state.
How do they use the history?
Well, nationalist historians really trace the origins of the modern Somali nation back to those great Islamic sultanates, particularly Adal and Ajuran. They presented them as direct precursors to a modern unified Somalia.
Emphasizing resistance.
Exactly. Emphasizing a long legacy of resistance to foreign powers. From Imam Ahmad Guray's wars against Abyssinia right up to Syed Muhammad Abdullah Hassan's anti-colonial struggle against the British, Italians, and Ethiopians in the early 20th century.
And this narrative was powerful. It helped achieve independence in 1960.
Hugely instrumental. And it also fueled later ambitions like the 1977 Ogaden War, which was an attempt to actually realize this vision of Greater Somalia by incorporating Somali-inhabited regions of Ethiopia.
But what was the long-term impact of using history that way?
Well, this implies a really complex kind of double-edged outcome. On the one hand, It created a powerful sense of unity and absolutely essential for independence. But by emphasizing this glorious unified past and often framing neighbors as sort of perennial enemies, it also created this expansionist political project and the catastrophic defeat in the Ogaden War in 1978 that shattered the unifying consensus. It badly exacerbated internal clan divisions, which ultimately contributed to the collapse of the Somali state in 1991.
So, the history that unified them in a way also played a part in their fragmentation.
It's a tragic irony. Yes, the interpretation and use of that history had unintended consequences.
Which underlines that the battle for history isn't just about discovery, it's about interpretation, and, maybe crucially, decolonizing that interpretation.
Exactly. That's a major focus now. For decades, the narrative of the Somali past has been shaped by external frameworks, colonial frameworks, Arab-centric perspectives, Ethiopian imperial narratives.
How did colonial narratives shape it?
Well, colonial-era history writing often flat out denied a deep Somali history, or it used racist ideas like the Hamitic hypothesis to claim that any sophisticated achievements must have come from non-African invaders. Basically, denying indigenous African agency.
And Arab-centric views.
Sometimes implicitly devalued the rich pre-Islamic past, focusing more on genealogies tracing back to Arabia, sometimes overlooking the deep Cushitic wits.
So how are scholars pushing back against all that? Now,
There's a strong push from Afrocentric and post-colonial scholars. They're challenging these external origin myths, focusing instead on indigenous development within Africa, highlighting things like the persistence of ancient Cushitic religious traditions like the worship of the sky god Wak, even within contemporary Somali Islam, showing cultural synthesis, not just replacement.
and is this critique also being turned inwards towards the nationalist narrative itself?
Yes, and that's perhaps the most complex part. Some scholars argue that the dominant Somali nationalist narrative, by really valorizing nomadic heritage and certain Arab genealogies,
It might have marginalized other Somali communities.
precisely, communities like the artisanal group, sometimes called Gabuya or Midgian. Some argue these groups might actually be the most direct descendants of the region's ancient sedentary pre-pastoralist civilizations. So, this calls for a kind of radical re-Africanization of the history, one that embraces these suppressed histories, that centers indigenous knowledge systems like Dakan Iyohido, culture and tradition, and hair, the customary law system.
This sounds like much more than just an academic debate.
Oh, it absolutely is. It's profoundly political, challenging these established historical narratives, especially the ones used to legitimize colonial borders or existing social hierarchies within Somali society. It creates intellectual space to argue for new forms of political organization, for self-determination, for social justice. The battle for Somalia's ancient past is in a very real way a battle for its future.
What an incredible deep dive this has been. Seriously, we've gone from that earliest rock art at Laas Geel with its mysterious, undeciphered script,
Thousands of years ago,
all the way to the legendary land of Punt that, captured the imagination of Egyptian pharaohs. We saw how Somali Merchant Republic skillfully played the game of global trade.
outsmarting empires.
Yeah, and how powerful medieval sultanates like the Ajuran, Africa's only hydraulic empire, were major players on the world stage, connecting with places like Ming China.
And we also touched on the complex, often quite heartbreaking story of how this history was lost, overlooked, and then how it's being courageously reclaimed now.
Right from debunking those old myths to the vital work of archaeologists like Dr. Sada Mire, who are working against just immense odds to protect a past that's been shattered.
It's truly remarkable work.
It really is a testament to the resilience of a people and just the enduring power of history itself.
I think the story of ancient Somali civilization shows us immense depth, incredible complexity, but also profound loss. It's a powerful reminder that our understanding of global history, it's constantly evolving. And often it evolves because of the diligent, sometimes dangerous work of scholars fighting to restore dignity and recognition to these marginalized narratives.
So maybe a final thought for our listeners. The history of ancient Somalia really shows us that what we think we know about the past, it's often so incomplete, isn't it?
Definitely.
How many other unwritten histories like Somalia's for so long are still out there waiting to be uncovered? And maybe more importantly, what new possibilities might understanding them reveal for our